welcome to the Chompcast. My name is Morgan Barnes. I'll be your host today. This is the official podcast of Sword Chomp. I'm joined by the crew of Sword Chomp, people who we'll be talking to for the next hour or so. So some quick introductions. Shea Layton has returned. Hello, Shea.
Hello there.
Back from Japan, we also are joined by Joshua Fowler.
Annyeong.
From one of the Carolinas, I can never remember if it's north or south. And Anthony Fisher joining us from Texas.
Ohayo gozaimasu, Shea Layton.
Ohayo gozaimasu.
I feel really left out right now.
It's a little late for that, but all right.
Well, it's actually morning there for Shea.
Oh, yeah, for Shea, yeah, it is. I'm forgetting that still.
Yeah.
You get to Saturday before the rest of us now. Lucky bastard. He
He's
gets
on
his weekends
actually-
early. He gets his weekends early.
Yeah.
Can you believe this?
Motherfucker.
Yeah, but his weekends are over
I
sooner
should have
too.
said Konbanwa. Yeah, true. True.
But no, we're happy Shea is back. It's been a while since we've been a full crew because Shea's been adjusting to Japan. So glad to have you back, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Glad
to
you're
be
done
back.
adjusting yourself.
That sounds so dirty.
The adjustment never ends. We got a really cool show today. In particular, I wanted to try and do like a listener-related show a month where I had Shea leave a message on the Instagram, the Sword Chomp Instagram, just about any sort of questions or comments or anything that the listeners wanted to leave for us, topical for us to talk about on this podcast. So this is mostly a listener-devoted show, but we also have a lot of cool topics in sort of on our normal vein along the lines of Persona 5. Me and Josh are still talking some Persona. Fish played some Rocket League, so we're going to talk some Rocket League. And Shea has played the most important game of all, Japanese Tinder. How's that been going, Shea?
What?
Tell us about those hotties.
I'm just
What the fuck?
I was just trying to catch you off guard, and it worked a little too well.
I've been playing
maybe-
actual video games.
Go ahead,
Thank
go
you
ahead.
very much.
Okay.
I had actually had a friend over earlier this week, and her and I were playing inside. That sounds really bad. We were playing the video game inside.
In quotation marks, inside.
No. And then we played a little bit of Hyperlight Drifter, and we played
Showing her all the
Played another
goods,
game.
huh?
yeah, I was showing her all the good games from last year.
Let's try to
Yeah.
connect these. You hyperlight drifted yourself inside, and then
We doing
I
this?
don't remember the other game.
we're trying to, Josh. Come on, Josh. throw me a life raft here, please. No, but that should be cool. We'll have a lot of. Looks like Shea had sort of have somebody over, show 'em a bunch of cool games, kind of a day. So we'll get to all that good game talk later. But we got a bunch of really cool topics for the show. And this was a really cool thing because whenever you left that message, Shea, on the Instagram, I was just curious what kind of sort of topics or questions we'd get back from our listeners, and they were all over the place.
Yeah, they were
So-
good.
Yeah, it was really cool, and a lot of them just wishing you, good vibes over in Japan, and in particular Dead Was, who will have the first comment I'm going to read. He said, "Have a great time in Japan, Shea. A lot of love in general I got from people who were just, happy for you in Japan."
I know. People I haven't even met. Very nice. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been really, really fun over here so far.
Yeah, it's really cool. We always look forward to Shea's Japanese stories to sort of end a lot of the shows. I know at least I do. So anyways, first topic here from Dead Was, as I mentioned, to kind of get things rolling. And I thought this was a really cool thing that I wanted to throw to you guys. Dead Was says, besides entertainment, how have video games affected your life? For me, problem solving, learning a foreign language, which is English for him, fine motor skills were all things I picked up while playing video games. But the biggest impact on my daily life is that video games have helped me deal with times of depression and or anxiety, where it would be impossible for me to be social. But even worse, to be alone with my thoughts. Games help me tune out the negative and get lost in wonderful worlds. but also through communities online. I met so many amazing friends and people that were dealing with the same issues I was, and they all shared a love for video games. Gaming and its many amazing communities gave me more than I ever could have expected when I started up that very first game I played back in the 1980s. Also have a great time in Japan, Shea, which I already mentioned. But so great question, Dead Was, and I'll kind of get this one rolling for you guys. I think this may have been partially spurned by one of my posts a couple weeks ago on our Instagram, where I was talking about sort of the anxiety I was dealing with. I know personally, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but for me, it's video games are so huge in, like he said, getting distracted in worlds that I can just forget about all the stresses and pressures of my life. But more importantly, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because for me, in order to sort of consume the negative thoughts in my mind, I have to get consumed or addicted with, a variety of video games. With the past few I can think of, like Final Fantasy 15, Persona 5, Horizon, and I have to sort of get so addicted to those things to consume the negative thoughts that sometimes it has negative effects on my life in the video game side of things, because that's all I think about. And when I get immersed in a video game, I obsess over all the weird thoughts that go around in my head, and it does actually help with my anxiety if I can find a game to really get lost in. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I obsess over it, other parts of my life actually can have a negative impact as well, which is kind of interesting. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, that's kind of similar things as well. Like, I've gotten to WoW a lot, which helped out right after I also got fired, which was it was kind of odd situation. Right, literally days before my first kid was born, I ended up getting fired.
Oof, that's rough.
Which was stressful, but in hindsight, it ended up being nice, just because it gave me time to help out with the baby, which was really stressful for my wife. And having me home there as well. Which since we're in America and in this country, we don't really do, maternity or paternity leave. That's just no. You work here, because America. So it ended up being kind of nice.
Throw that baby in a daycare and just deal with
exactly.
It, yeah.
But yeah, WoW kind of helped me through that as well, just because I was watching the baby a lot, and at that age they're doing a lot of sleeping, so it gave me something to do, and made lots of friends through that. Still in touch with a lot of them now, and it's like a decade later. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And what about you, Shea?
Video games have done a lot for me over the years. I really don't want to get on my soapbox, because I don't want this to be like a whole soapbox thing, but
that's why I have a podcast, man.
Younger,
this is your personal soapbox.
That's right. And my gas station philosophy podcast on the side. But no, when I was really young, my parents were going through a very bitter divorce, and they had a really tough time getting along, and it sometimes bled into my relationship with both of them at times. And it was difficult, because I would go to one house, because my parents had joint custody of me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to be there. And then I would go to the other one, and I didn't want to be there either, because my parents were arguing or doing whatever they were doing. So I used video games as an extreme form of escapism at the time, which I don't know if it was healthy or not, but it certainly helped me at times. If I don't want to deal with the troubles of that, I would go into a video game and I would play it. And that's kind of why I have this deep affinity for some of the PS1 and Sega Genesis era games, because that's a lot of the games I played at that time. So it always kind of reminds me of like this safe place whenever I go back and play those games, which is probably, honestly, admittedly, why Shining Force is my favorite game of all time, other than it's a really fun game. But I think that it can be used for that. I know that some video games can be used as a form of like a profession, and I know that's a weird thing to say, but I actually started drumming in real life because I played Rock Band so much, and I got so good at Rock Band on the drums, I decided I wanted to get real drums, and that kind of led me to becoming a drummer. And had I never played Rock Band, that may never have occurred. So I think that video games have so many different impacts on people, and it's always interesting to hear, as long as it's not too in depth, like some of us nerds can get, obviously, but um, just how video games can impact each and every person. It's a
Yeah,
unique story.
that's awesome. That's cool. That's something I've known you for a long time that even I didn't know. So that's really cool. What about you, Fish?
Um, yeah, I usually play video games just for the fun, of course. But like when I started moving on to like MMOs online, um, like RuneScape was like first MMO that I ever played. Like it kind of helped me understand people a little bit better in online communities. And I don't know, it's I went from that and kind of addicted to the feeling of being around other people in game, because I was usually a shy person growing up, and I would usually wait until somebody wanted to start a conversation with me. So whenever I played online games, I felt like I was actually a social person, I guess. So I think online games have kind of helped me become a little bit more of a social person, because there is kind of that anonymous feeling to it, to where you can say something and not feel the immediate judgment of the person on the other end. So you can just see their avatar essentially, or their character in game. So games
Yeah.
like RuneScape, EverQuest, World of Warcraft, I loved all those games because I got addicted to that kind of that social setting. And
Well, and I've known you for a long time. Do you feel like those games had any sort of negative impact on you as well? Because I remember you were,
mm,
when I first met you, you were just playing EverQuest and World of Warcraft all day. Like you, you would message me at like 10 o'clock at night, and you'd be like, "I just woke up, dude." I'm like, "What are you talking about? What is your sleep schedule?"
yeah, they did kind of ruin me as far as like actually being a productive member to society and going to school and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess that is a negative too, but like it just felt better to actually be in those worlds instead of my world. So it was of course escapism, like Shay said. It is a form of escapism, but um, actually, I don't crave online games as much as I did back then. As an adult, you know, I usually play games now as just kind of like get away from all my stresses in life. Having to work, having to deal with bills, and uh, dealing with family and family members. Usually, when I boot up a game, I set aside the time to have a little bit of quiet time for myself, and I just use
Yeah.
it to escape away from all my stresses, from my daily life stresses, and just kind of relax to them. And that's usually what I do nowadays. But yeah, back in the day, I used to just escape away in that shit. But
Forever. Well, and yeah, that's the thing I think that I have the most problem with personally is like it's hard for me to find things in life that are as interesting to me as like if I'm really addicted to a really interesting video game. Just because since I was a kid, they've captured my imagination in so many different ways, and how the medium has evolved that I find myself almost like too into them sometimes, where I get worried. I'm like, I should be probably wanting to do other things, but I don't really want to, and I think that's part of the negative that comes with um, our lifestyle, or I guess our hobby. But it's all about the balance, right? I don't know how you guys feel about that, but for me, it's always about finding a balance. But I just never can quite seem to do it. Um, but I've noticed that some of you guys are better at finding it. That like Shay is, I've known Shay for a long time, and he's always been really good at it. Like I'll occasionally see him binge on a game for a couple days, like The Witcher, but then he won't. I'll see him go out and like go hang out with friends or go to the bar for a couple days, and like he won't touch video games for like a week, and then he'll go back to them. Like you seem like you're a lot better at balancing things than I am.
I don't know if it's necessarily that as much as it is I'm the type of person where I get bored if I do one thing for too long.